All right, so you just graduated high school and you're excited and your whole life is in front of you or ahead of you. And then you sit there after graduation and you go, well, what now? What am I supposed to be doing? How do I get there to finding that cool job and making all the money and living my life and potentially having a family in the future? Well, the first thing you could do is you could say, well, I'm going to go to university. And, you might spend 4 to 6 years or even more than that going to university. And you have to look at the cost of going to university. A lot of students, the average student debt is like $40,000. And if you think of becoming an engineer, a lawyer, or other, or even a doctor, some of these careers actually cost like hundreds of thousands of dollars in school debt. And then you got to think about how you're going to pay for living and surviving while you're going to school in college, because now you're an adult and you have to pay for that, unless you have parents that can help you out, or you have scholarships that can help you out along the way. But again, if you choose the university path, there's a lot of people going to university. It's a very competitive environment, and there's a considerable amount of cost and money that goes into that. All right, so what's your other option on the other extreme? Well, there's fast food, right? I mean, you can go out there, there's fast food restaurants everywhere, or you could work in a grocery store, or you could do anything like that. And these jobs aren't necessarily the funnest or most enjoyable jobs. And the rude awakening related to that is the actual wages that you earn related to those jobs. If you look at this is a map of the 2019 minimum wage. The federal minimum wage at this time, I think, is $7.25 an hour. And if you look at certain states, yes, their minimum wages might be a little bit higher, but their cost of livings are also considerably higher. So when you look at this and you kind of multiply this out by a certain number of hours that you can work a week, and you figure out this against your living wages, working in fast food doesn't necessarily pay off. So let's actually do some numbers. Let's take a look at how that might work. If you made $11 an hour, and that's actually kind of higher end here, and that I'm just using the number because I live in the state of Arizona, and our minimum wage is $11 an hour. If I multiply that by 20 hours, because typically when you're working these fast food jobs or at Walmart or other places like that, they're not really giving you full-time work right away. They're actually usually having you in a part-time position, and this means you also don't get benefits and other things that come along with typically working in a full-time environment. Full-time work means you're working 40 hours or more a week, and usually eight hours a day for 5 days a week. So again, in part-time work or fast food or minimum wage jobs, you're often working only 20 hours or to 30 hours a week. So if we multiply that out, we're making $220 a week, and that's before taxes. So if we say 20 to 25% of our income gets taxed to pay the government and to pay our Social Security and all of that, at the end of the day, we're only taking home $165 a week. Okay, so $165 a week. If we multiply that by 4 weeks, which is the average number of weeks in a month, you get $660 a month. Now, why do I look at this per month? Well, the reason why I look at this per month is because most of your expenses will often be paid per month. So you pay your electric bill, your water bill, your rent or your mortgage payment, and your car payment are often paid once per month. So when you look at this, I can see that I'm only making $660 a month, and I wonder, can I actually survive on that? Well, let's see. Are we making a living? Well, the first thing is, if I wanted to buy a house, and let's say a 3 bedroom house, 2 bath house, national average of the house payment plus all of the water bill, the electric bill, the trash and sewer, all of that, and even maintenance or repairs, mowing your lawn, all of that stuff could be around $1,300 a month. Then if you have to own a car in order to get to work, or you want to have a car, and depending on whether you bought a new car or a used car, and you fully paid it off or not, or you're making a payment, if you take the car payment plus the car insurance plus your gas plus any repairs and maintenance items, this could be up to $600 a month. Cars are really expensive. A lot of people underestimate how expensive cars are on their monthly expenses. Then you have food, and really I underestimated the food here. So this is really just looking at eating per month. But if you think about it, you have hygiene things that you need, you have household items, cleaner and things like that that you need to buy, and other miscellaneous items. And all of this excludes your entertainment expenses and going out and trying to have fun and see the movies and do other stuff in your life. So when we look at these numbers, there's no way that you're making a living when you work in fast food and part-time, or work at Walmart and you work part-time. You're only making $660 in take-home income, if you take $2,150 in expenses trying to actually run a home and raise a family, you're in the hole by over $1,400 or $1,500. So there's no way that this is, the right choice over the long haul. It might be a good first job in order to make some cash and get started, but you definitely don't want to get caught here in thinking that, hey, I'm just going to go work at Walmart or McDonald's or some minimum wage job and I'm going to move up the ladder there and I'm going to do really well. Now, let's take this a step further. When you start to, let's say you're in your mid 20s and you start to meet a partner and you're like, hey, I want to have a family and I want to do other things and I want to really start living my life and building my own life and not living with my parents and things anymore. When you look at that, you start having, children. You have to buy furniture and fill your house up with things to live in. You have clothing that you need to buy. You have your cell phone bill, especially if you have a cool iPhone or a Samsung Galaxy or something like that, and you need to pay the monthly fee for that, as well as the buying the phone itself. Then there's health insurance that you got to look at. Health insurance is can be a fairly expensive thing, especially if you have children. And then you have your savings account. Like for emergencies, your car breaks down, something goes wrong. You get in an accident or something, or you get really sick, and you have to have some sort of money beyond just what you're making every week with your job. So what happens is a lot of youngsters, when they get started, they fall into this credit card trap, and it's terrible. It's really bad here. What ends up happening is a lot of college students or a lot of young folks, they'll end up, buying things that they need to get started, like furniture and other stuff, and they'll buy that with the credit card. And the interest rates on credit cards can be up to like 18 to 20%. And basically, people are thinking, oh, I'm just paying the minimum payment of like $30, $40 a month for that, and I'm paying it off. In reality, your minimum payment you're making is just the interest that you owe. And so a lot of young people get trapped in this, in that they're continually making credit card minimum payments and just paying interest, and they never pay off the things like furniture or a laundry machine or other stuff that they purchase to get started in their lives. So really the best thing here is to avoid credit cards if possible when you're first getting started, and borrow money from your parents, where you can pay them at a zero or low interest rate, so that way you can get started. Or better yet, just save money. Like live low, live with your parents, live in a cheap kind of situation, and try to save as much money as possible before you move out and try to get started on your own. All right. So with all this said, what do I do if I don't want to work in fast food and I don't necessarily want to go work at the university, or go to the university for 4 to 6 years? Maybe I don't have the money to pay for college tuition or the scholarships, and I don't want to wait that long. I want to get out to the workforce earlier. So what do you do? Well, the first thing is you have to make a plan. Okay. And so when you're looking at this, there are three main questions that you're going to ask yourself when you're making the plan. What do I want to be? How do I want to live my life and the lifestyle that I want to live? And then how do I get there? Okay, so the video here is titled, related to steel detailing and why choose a career in steel detailing, and I'm going to get to that. But this can be like applicable to anything. Basically look at these three questions here and write these things down, and this is a good guide or map to choosing whatever career that you want to do, and where you're going to go to college, and how you're going to pay for college, and what you're going to do. So the first question is, what do I want to be? And there are three major things that you need to look at that. In today's day age, you see a lot of videos and stuff like do what you love and do what you're interested in, what you care about. Look, hey, that's very true, and you should do that, especially when you get a little bit more on your feet and grounded, and you have experience in things. Try to focus on the things that you love to do, but we also all got to survive in the world. We've got to make a living, we've got to pay our rent, and we've got to be able to eat. And so part of that is not just what do you love to do, it's what are you good at that people are willing to pay you money for. So what are the skills and things that you're good at? Now, the best resource when you're young, like when you're 17 to 20 years old, is to really ask, your high school counselors and teachers. Get them to give you feedback on what they see as some of your strongest skills that are, and what type of careers or jobs that are applicable to that. Then the next thing you do is you go look online and Google those job descriptions and read them and go, oh yeah, I think I could do that, or that makes sense. I like that. That sounds interesting, and I think I've got the skills or natural skill sets that would fit that. The second big part of Googling the job description is finding out what is the salary. What's the starting salary after you get an education? Can you start in that job after high school, or do you have to go get a degree or a certification? And what do you make when you start versus what do you make 3 to 5 years of experience? and then what's the maximum salary that those positions offer, even if you've been in there for 10 to 15 years. A lot of positions at some point will max out at some value because the market just won't bear anymore to pay that type of position or that role, because it's not scarce or rare, and you're not a movie star or a football star. And so at some point there is a capping salary, even if you've got 10 or 20 years of experience. So look at the salaries and your starting wage versus your average wage versus your maximum wage. Then lastly, what you need to look at is when I want to be a doctor versus a lawyer versus a teacher versus a CAD technician or a steel detailer in this case, I got to look at, well, what kind of college or certification do I need, and how much is it going to cost, and how long is it going to take for me to get there before I can go get a job, start working, and making money to pay off that education expense. All right, so here are some things that I looked at as a steel detailer. When I was 17, they're a little bit more modernized. Like I wasn't playing Fortnite 20 years ago. I was playing SimCity 2000 and games like that. But these are a lot of the skills and sort of things that I was saying out loud to my teachers and to mentors around me when I was graduating high school. And I was thinking, I'm going to go to college to be either an engineer or be an architect. Everybody in the 90s was like, you've got to go get a 4-year degree. You're a really sharp young man. You need to go out there, and if you want to make any kind of money, you got to be an architect or an engineer and get your bachelor's degree at a minimum. I was like, okay, I've got to go do that. But I didn't have parents that had a lot of money, and they weren't going to be able to pay for my tuition, so it was really all on my own. And I didn't have necessarily the best scholarship options, even though I had pretty good grades. Didn't have a lot of scholarship options, and so it was pretty much me figuring all of that out on my own. And this is kind of what I was looking for in my life. So what I found out is that a couple of mentors and counselors at school were telling me, well, look, you should look into being like a CAD designer. There's a lot of CAD and drafting kind of jobs and programs, and you don't have to be in school for 4 to 6 years and pay for the university, or you could do this while you're working on your degree. And then somebody in particular told me about this career called steel detailing. And whenever I mention detailing, everybody thinks of washing and cleaning out cars. And that's not what steel detailers do. What we actually do is we create 3D models today, our virtual models that represent buildings. And I'm going to kind of show you that in a second. And then basically we make drawings and instructions for fabrication shops and welders, and then erectors out in the field with cranes to actually put structural steel up on the insides or the skeletons of buildings. So again, this is not many people know about this job, but this is a highly in-demand job because not a lot of people know about it, and it takes a certain amount of skills or an apprenticeship over a few years for you to learn it and get up and going. So what I did is I was like, all right, well, let me go out to salary.com and let's look at what a CAD designer or a steel detailer makes. And you don't have to be in structural. You can be a CAD designer working for an engineer. You can work in the mechanical or electrical industries, or even working for an architect as a draftsman or a modeler. And when you look at that up, you can see that starting salaries can range from 40 grand all the way up to 70 grand on whichever title you look at. When I looked up steel detailer, I saw 51 to 61,000 a year. Now, I've been in the steel business for a long time, and you can make more than 61,000 a year because you're going to usually make some money on overtime, which is time and a half if you're working over 40 hours a week. And then also the more experienced detailers can make a good bit up above that, and I'll kind of cover that in a little bit. And then, so when I looked at this, so if I just took salary.com, you're just looking for yourself and what's the average out there. If I took $51,000 coming out of college or getting a degree program or something like that, I can make $51,000. If I divide that by 12, that gives me $4,250 a month. If I times that by 0.75, which basically means I get 75% of my income after taxes, so I get $3,188 a month, and I take home $797 a week. I'm like, all right, well, that's pretty good cash. Now, the reason why I wanted you to see per year, per month, and per week is because, again, most people that are out there are looking at their expenses because they pay rent, their car payment, and everything. They do that in a per month basis. But then you also have to look at a per week from eating and gassing up your car and looking at your weekly expenses as well. So it's good to look at and understand and feel the numbers out from a annual, monthly, as well as a weekly basis, and then definitely look at your take-home revenue versus just your pre-tax revenue. So when it comes to steel detailing, again, if you look at the left, I'm, trying to go from being a gamer and, playing Fortnite on my PlayStation or my PC all day and really building cool stuff and figuring out how to make intricate systems to make them work and to beat the other players in the game. And instead, what you're doing is you're building virtual models of things that will really be built in real life. So every grocery store, every bank, every mall, every football stadium, every skyscraper you see has structural steel inside of it. And so, what steel detailers do is they build digital versions or virtual versions of that model, exactly how it's going to be built and manufactured in a shop, as well as erected or put together and constructed out in the field. So, the fun part of this job is that you get still the creative element, just like you're playing a video game like Fortnite on the left, but instead you're building something that's going to really be built in real life. And most steel detailers that I talk to, they say that the biggest thing that they have pride in with their job is that they can fly or drive around in their town and they can say, I built that. I was part of making that project happen. And it just feels really good that you're actually building and doing something that's a part of your community, and that you can easily see that tangibly in real life. Now, part of the challenge and the exciting part is figuring out how to do things more productively and be faster, because that's part of the competition. Is if you're building these models and doing this work, if you're more productive or faster than other companies that do this, then you're able to make more money and get more jobs and get more work. So I had to look at how do I become a steel detailer? Like, what's the first steps? And so really a lot of the counselors were telling me, and then I actually went and looked at some companies that do steel detailing or steel fabrication, and I called them up and said, hey, like, well, how do I become a detailer? Do I got to go to college? Do I got to get a degree? Do I become a trainee? What do I do? And a lot of them said that, hey, today we want you to get an associate's degree, and usually in CAD or drafting. And sometimes there are some structural detailing programs throughout the country, although there's not a whole bunch of them, again, because it's such a specialty kind of career. But most of them will say, hey, we'll accept some sort of associate's degree in CAD or design. And so I looked at my local community college here within Phoenix, Arizona, in Maricopa County, and it's $90 per credit hour, and they do have a associate's degree program, and it's roughly about 60 credits. So if I just look at the pure college tuition costs, it's going to cost me $5,400 or $5,400. And usually an associate's degree, if you're going full time, takes you about 2 years, right? So 2.5 to 3 years. Then I just put in another $2,000 in books and labs. I just kind of guessed on that based on percentage of the tuition and just kind of some of the numbers that I saw there. So it's going to cost me, in order to become a steel detailer or even get maybe an entry level job, potentially $6,400. So there's an investment there. Now, is that $40,000 or $100,000 like going to a university? No. And this is only potentially a 2-year program. Now, the other thing that these guys said is that, well, hey, look, if you took some AutoCAD classes or you took some Tekla Structures classes, which are the softwares that are used in the steel detailing profession, they said, hey, if you got a CAD certificate, got some training on those softwares, and you knew how to sort of read drawings, like design drawings and architectural drawings and things like that, then hey, we'll hire you as a trainee and give you an entry level position. Well, so there are at my community colleges a CAD certificate. So instead of that full degree and some of those basic credit classes that I got to take, I just take more focused classes on the softwares and reading drawings and certain things about industrial and civil technologies, which gave me the basics and focus very much on what I need in order to get started right away. And this is only 25 credits, so it's less in tuition, and I could probably get out there within a year. All right, so when I really looked at this, again, I wrote this all down on paper and then I wanted to make a presentation for you on this, is that for $6,400 over 1 to 2 years of going to school, I could start making $51,000 a year and make up to probably about $80,000 a year as a detailer. Now, again, this is working a full-time job, 40 hours a week, plus probably up to about 10 hours of overtime, which is paid usually at time and a half. So 1.5 times your hourly rate. So in the detailing range, I see a lot of people make between the 51 to 80. Some people make more, especially if you're a project manager, you manage jobs, or you do certain complex work, or you own your own business. You can, of course, make more than that. But just saying, from an average production detailer checker, from starting out to 10 plus years experience, this is about the pay range that you'd be sitting in. So then the next question is, now that I figured out, ooh, maybe I want to become a steel detailer, or you've just used this video to figure out, looking at other or variety of different career options, and you figured out how much education and costs and what potential earnings you might make, you really got to ask yourself, how do I want to live? What kind of lifestyle do I expect to live? What lifestyle do I expect to live between the years of 18 to 25 years old? Then 25 to 35, I might find a partner, start wanting to have kids and raise a family. And what is that? How much money and what kind of lifestyle do I want to live then? Am I going to have a house? Am I going to have a pool? Am I going to have a car? What am I going to be doing? And then you have to start thinking beyond that. What is your maximum potential earnings after you've got 20 years of experience and you're in your 40s and 50s? How do you want to be living then? And how much money do you want to be making then? So if we look at this, there's definitely a difference in cost, especially per month, between a big old mansion with a big pool on the left versus living in an apartment. Okay, so just on average, this may vary from different state or city wherever you live, but $3,500 a month is pretty hard. That's a lot more money just in a house payment, to live based on the salaries that I was just showing you before. But $800 a month is probably more in line and might be a little bit low and might be something good for me to start out with. But I'll probably want somewhere in between this and have a 3-bedroom house or something like that in the future. Also evaluate, do I want a Porsche or am I going to be driving a Toyota Corolla or something like that? Now, there's nothing stopping you saying you could do either one. And if you've got big goals and you want to do the left, then steel detailing, for instance, might not be a career for you. And you may like evaluate other careers, but then you just have to deal with the trade-off of how much school, how much pay, am I going to have to pay for that? How long am I going to have to be in school? And do I have the tools and the skills and things that I need in order to get to owning a Porsche and to having a big house on the left? So you have to map out what type of lifestyle you want. Go find out how much those things cost, especially per month, or like on your mortgage or your car payments, and figure out. And if you want to travel or do other things, figure out how much those things cost, and start to write down mock budgets. So this would be my bare minimum budget if I was just surviving. This would be my nice, comfortable lifestyle budget. That's your middle budget. And then your high end budget would be if I was really making the good money that I want and doing all the things that I wanted in life, this is how much money I'd have to be making in order to do that. So, how do I want to live? So, in the end, what you're looking at is, and again, I suggest using Excel or writing this out on paper, you really want to map out your projected income from all those careers that you were looking at, whether you want to be a steel detailer or a CAD draftsman or a teacher or a lawyer or a doctor. Look at your income and what your income potential is minus the lifestyle you want to live or your expenses. And what you're hoping is that that is a positive number. That's a greater than zero number, which means you have disposable income left over. So many people in America and the U.S. live in the negative, right? So, or they're living right at zero and barely getting by week to week. Really, what you want to do is you need to balance out your plan of the type of job that you're going to go to school for and that you're going to be making, and the potential earnings even after you've been in that industry for like 10 years, and subtract that from the lifestyle that you expect to have in your 20s, your 30s, and your 40s, and see if that all makes sense and you're consistently in positive disposable income numbers. So, how do I get there? That's the last major question here. Now, there are 3 basic rules to that. First, there's get educated, get a job, and live cheap. So this is like the 3 basic steps. Now, they don't have to go in a specific order. They can be in parallel or going on at the same time, but these are the 3 main components. So in the case of a steel detailer, the career that I'm in, right? Basically, what I looked at is that to get started, I need to learn how to use the software tools that these professionals use or steel detailers use in their everyday work. And the 2 most common tools that are used are like Tekla Structures and AutoCAD. And so basically, I've found that, hey, I looked online and YouTube and different things, and I found that there's some resources for free for students to get started. Then I also saw that at my community college, there's this certificate of completion in computer aided drafting, so or a CAD certificate. So not the full associate's degree, but the 1 to 2 year, or say 1 year sort of certificate program. This was 20 credits times $90 an hour, so for $1,800 and for about a year of my time, and getting online and learning some of these extra softwares, I'd probably have enough of the basic skills in order to go be an apprentice or get an entry level and trainee job with a steel detailing firm. In fact, I actually called a few, of my friends that actually do steel detailing firms still today, and a lot of them said that, hey, yeah, if somebody has got the skills, they show that good enough math, they've got the hardworking ethic, and they can read drawings, because they went and did a few CAD classes and things like that in school. We're happy to bring them on and get them started at roughly like what we're seeing here, around $14 an hour. Now this may vary. It's just gonna. I will say it's gonna be above minimum wage, right? So that's the key here. It's better than fast food. You're working in a safe, clean environment at a computer inside, and you're not running around like a crazy maniac working at Walmart or at the fast food restaurant. By your house. You're actually doing something, you're learning a skill that's actually going to help progress you to make that money, and you're getting paid to do that. So for a $2,000 investment, I can go start to make $1,120 a month before taxes. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking at here. Now, the last piece here to make this happen is that it's always hard to chicken and egg on the number one and two. Get educated, get a job. Get educated, get a job. Which one comes first, or can they happen at the same time? And to get educated, it of course costs money. Now, if you've got a good relationship with your parents, try to live with them as long as you can, right? If you can stay a few years after high school, stay with them. And basically, most parents that I've ever talked to, including myself, we're pretty cool with our kids that if you're doing something after high school, including you've got a full-time job or you're going to start community college or do something, then hey, we're going to let you live here without any rent, and we're happy to let you get started and get things going. So one rule that my parents always taught me was save money while you're working in high school or you're going to college here and living at home. Save some money. So I always tell my kids, get a goal of $5,000 in a savings account or in your checking account that you have saved up, and do not move out of your parents' house until you've got at least $5,000 in your bank account. What is that $5,000? So that is your first and last month's rent if you go get an apartment after you move out. It's buying furniture. It's maybe investing in a car. So after you are done with college and you've got a decent job, full-time job, you may be ready to buy a car that you can make a payment on. But the $5,000 is emergency money, and it's getting started money. Rather than you getting into the credit card trap, you can save cash while you're living cheap with your parents and save up as much as possible to prepare yourself for moving out expenses and getting started with your life by the time you're 20 to 24, right? Don't go buy a new car while you're living with your parents. Or if you do, that's fine. Work that out and just say that, hey, mom and dad, I'm working and I'm going to school and I'm working towards a career type job. I'm not just working at fast food and buying a new car because you're not charging me any rent. That's not how it works. If you do strategically decide to buy a new car, have your parents help you like co-sign to get a lower interest rate on that. Buy the car, try to pay it off while you're living at home. Then you have a working car, and that helps you in your startup costs when you do move out and you do get into a full-time job. So again, this is just a scenario. And in fact, this is some of the optimal scenario that I've been trying to work with and tell my own kids. And so this is from a steel detailer's point of view. If you're young, just coming out of high school, you want to quickly start making money soon, and you want to be able to get on your own, sooner rather than 4 to 6 years after college, then basically this is one of those paths to be able to do that. So get educated, get a job, and live cheap. So what are some additional resources? If you are interested in steel detailing, you like drawing, you like drafting, you like construction or architecture, and building models and seeing really cool stuff looks interesting to you, and you don't want to spend 6 years in college to get there and get working and start to make some money, then basically first step I'd say is go to campus.tekla.com. That's one of the softwares that's used by steel detailers. Look up on YouTube, watch a bunch of videos, and just watch how things are done. See if it looks interesting and exciting and something that you'd be able to do or be interested in doing. This software is free for students, and basically you can get started and you can build your own models, and there's training videos to show you how to get started. If you could get through these training videos and go into a steel detailing company and show them that you're able to build a model and do it pretty efficiently and quickly, you're on a good foot. This is one of the most popular softwares out there that steel detailing companies use, and they're desperate to find really good people that can run the software and learn steel detailing. Now, for steel jobs, Basically, the two biggest resources I'd say is there's a steel-jobs.com as well as LinkedIn. Just look up steel detailing. The two most common companies that hire steel detailers are steel detailing firms. So they're firms that do nothing but detailing in this modeling and drafting. And then there's steel fabricators. Steel fabricators sometimes will have and hire detailers in-house to work at their shop, or they'll hire outside detailing firms in order to do their detailing work. But if you're looking for a job after you sort of get educated, or you're actually wanting to just call some people that are in the steel detailing business and get more information and knowledge about what the job's like, what your potential earnings are, and things like that, and what sort of skills you need to have before you actually could get a trainee job or get started, then just go find some of these companies, look them up online, look up steel detailing in whatever state you're in, or steel fabrication, whatever your state in that you're in. Call people up, get some info, and then see if you can start to make some relationships and figure out the plan that you need to get going and go forward. So in conclusion, my name is Chris Kiak, and thanks for watching this. I put this together again because in the industry we're desperate to find some new talent to come into the industry. I've been in the business for over 20 plus years, and I've always had work. So even in downtimes when construction's been slow, because I've been a hard-working, good detailer that's accurate and has a pretty good productivity rate, I've always had work. It's companies are always looking for good detailers because they're hard to come by, since it's not like the most common mainstay job like working at Walmart or Amazon or being a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer. It's not the most common job, but it's a highly in need job because it's a specialized job, and I've always had work. I've got zero college debt. When I was going to community college when I was younger, I paid for all of my college with cash, as well as the companies I worked for. They offered me tuition reimbursement. So look for those kind of options, especially if you work for a fabrication or engineering company. So I have zero college debt, and I've been able to raise my family. Am I the most wealthy person? Like when I was doing mainly detailing before I started doing training and programming. I wasn't a millionaire per se, but like I was able to comfortably raise my family, and I always had work and was making a decent living. Now, potential, what I did is I decided that, hey, I want to grow beyond just doing detailing, became a project manager, and I actually opened up my own small business, and I do training and customization, and I even program the software that a lot of steel detailers use today. So there are a lot of career growth paths beyond just being a production detailer as well, and so those are great opportunities for you to expand and earn more income, and potentially bring in additional detailers into the industry. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to look me up on LinkedIn or reach out to me. My name is Chris Kiak, and I'm happy to point you in the direction. I'm not necessarily hiring more detailers directly myself, but I know a ton of companies that are desperate to find good structural steel detailers.